Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell said on Wednesday the U.S. central bank would hold interest rates steady, despite repeated demands from President Donald Trump to lower them.
It's all because of the Fed. He's done a bad job.
Trump spoke just before Powell's remarks, reiterating that he thinks there should be an immediate and steep rate cut.
We're keeping the rates high, and it's hurting people from buying houses, so we don't want that. I hear they're going to do it in September, not today. For what reason? Nobody knows.
Powell said the Fed is focused on controlling inflation, not on government borrowing or home mortgage costs that Trump wants lowered. Powell added that the risk of rising inflation from Trump's trade policies remains too high for the central bank to begin loosening its grip until more information is collected.
We believe that the current stance of monetary policy leaves us well positioned to respond in a timely way to potential economic developments.
The latest policy decision was made after a 9-2 vote by the Federal Open Market Committee, a rare split outcome at the consensus-driven central bank. Two Fed governors, both Trump appointees, dissented for the first time in more than 30 years. The split decision gave little indication of when borrowing costs might be lowered, but the Fed also said economic growth moderated in the first half of the year, possibly bolstering the case to lower rates at a future meeting should the trend continue.
Canada intends to recognize the State of Palestine at the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly in September 2025. This intention is predicated on the Palestinian Authority's commitment to much-needed reforms, including commitments by the Palestinian Authority's President Abbas to fundamentally reform its governance, to hold general elections in 2026 in which Hamas can play no part, and to demilitarize the Palestinian state. Canada reiterates that Hamas must immediately release all hostages taken in the horrific terrorist attack of October 7th, that Hamas must disarm, and that Hamas must play no role in the future governance of Palestine. Canada will always steadfastly support Israel's existence as an independent state in the Middle East, living in peace and security. Any path to lasting peace for Israel also requires a viable and stable Palestinian state, and one that recognizes Israel's inalienable right to security and peace.
A powerful earthquake off the coast of Russia's Far East on Wednesday triggered tsunami waves of up to 16 feet, sparking evacuation orders in Japan, Hawaii, and across the Pacific. Eyewitness video showed the moment people in the remote Kamchatka Peninsula felt the magnitude 8.8 earthquake hit, sending them fleeing. While footage released by the region's health ministry is said to show surgery being performed as the room shook. The shallow quake damaged buildings and injured several people. Kamchatka's emergency minister shared a video verified by Reuters of him expressing relief that no children were in this kindergarten when a wall crumbled from the quake and that no one was injured. Tsunami waves struck parts of Kamchatka and partially flooded Severokurilsk, a town on an island south of the peninsula, emergency and regional officials said. Across Japan's Pacific coast, devastated by a 2011 earthquake and tsunami, alarms sounded and evacuation orders were issued for tens of thousands of people. The automated voice in this eyewitness video is heard telling people to get above the fourth floor of buildings. Workers also evacuated the Fukushima nuclear plant, where a meltdown following the 2011 tsunami caused a radioactive disaster. At least 3 tsunami waves were recorded in Japan of up to 4.3 feet, according to officials. Authorities said no injuries or damage were reported so far and no irregularities at any nuclear plants. In Hawaii, the U.S. Coast Guard ordered ships out of harbors as the tsunami approached. Coastal residents were warned to get to high ground or at least the 4th floor of buildings. Waves of up to 5.5 feet impacted the islands. The Pacific Tsunami Warning Center later reduced its warning level, saying no major tsunami was expected. Waves of over 1.5 feet were observed as far as California, with smaller ones reaching Canada's British Columbia. Russian scientists said it was the most powerful quake to hit the region since 1952. Kamchatka sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, a geologically active region prone to earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Officials there said aftershocks were ongoing of a fairly high intensity, though they added that stronger tremors were not expected in the near future.
Thanos Marmarinos pilots his small fishing boat out of the harbor on the northern shore of the Greek island of Lesbos. 10 years ago, Marmarinos was a frontline rescuer for some of the hundreds of thousands of migrants attempting to sail to Europe. He remembers pulling women and children from a dinghy that was breaking up in a storm. One child was wrapped so tight he could only see their eyes. These images never leave your mind, he says. In 2015, Lesbos became the first stop for half of the 1 million people trying to reach Europe from countries including Syria, Afghanistan, and Iraq. The island is a short distance from the Turkish shore, and for hundreds of thousands represented a toehold on EU territory. Lesbos residents helped them find food and shelter, and the island became a hub for charities and aid workers, and a symbol of Europe's solidarity toward people fleeing war and poverty.
I was constantly carrying. We were tying up boats that were adrift. In the middle of the sea, we tied them up and brought them to shore.
But today, the island shows how far government responses have hardened against people seeking refuge in Europe. Now, if Marmarinos offered to help migrants in distress, he risks jail. Anyone caught helping migrants to shore now may face charges including facilitating illegal entry into Greece or helping a criminal enterprise. That's under a 2021 law passed as part of Europe's efforts to counter mass migration from the Middle East and Asia.
Put your life jacket on! Put your life jacket on!
A shift in attitudes here began in 2016 following a deal between the EU and Ankara, whereby Syrian refugees arriving in Greece would be returned to Turkey. That meant Greece would no longer be a transit country on the route to northern Europe, but a holding zone where tens of thousands of migrants had to wait for their fate to be decided. A camp in an old military base outside the village of Moria housed more than 10,000 people by 2018, up from just a few hundred in under 3 years. A fire ripped through it in 2020. Messages, some of them partially defaced, are still visible. This one read, "Welcome to Europe."
People continue fleeing, and they will continue fleeing. It's not an issue of whether we like it or not.
Tulina Demeli is an assistant protection officer with United Nations Refugee Agency, UNHCR. She said the change in policy will not change the reality.
It's a fact, and we need to face it, and the European governments need to face it. You cannot deter people trying to save their lives from fleeing.
Bek Morad Sadeji fled Afghanistan. He is in physical therapy, trying to regain his strength after surviving a shipwreck off the coast of Lesbos in April. 8 people, including his wife and a 2-year-old, drowned. He told Reuters his boat was intercepted by a Greek Coast Guard vessel, which directed them back to Turkey and then swamped their small boat with seawater.
When we were coming, a ship came directly in front of us. It said, "Stop, stop, stop, Turkey, Turkey, Turkey." It came in front of our boat, accelerated and rose up over our boat. Our boat filled with water.
In a statement, the Coast Guard said it launched a rescue operation immediately when it saw the dinghy was taking on water. In response to Reuters' requests for comment, it said the Coast Guard always acts, quote, "with professionalism and absolute respect for human life." Since 2015, Greece's Coast Guard service has saved 263,000 third country nationals in danger at sea, it said. Migrant deaths in the Mediterranean, while far below 2015 levels, are still common. In the eastern Mediterranean route alone, which includes Greece, a UN agency reported 191 migrants died or went missing trying to reach Europe in 2024. The UN recorded 2,573 migrant deaths and disappearances on all Mediterranean routes last year. Greece denies that it violates human rights or that it forcefully returns asylum seekers from its shores. Greece's migration ministry and the Prime Minister's office did not immediately respond to requests for comment for this story. With EU funding, Lesbos will soon open a new migrant camp able to house 5,000 people. The site, comprising rows of identical gray shipping containers, is miles from the nearest convenience store. Locals oppose it, saying it will increase the threat of wildfires in a region that often does not see rain for months. But people do still come. Fisherman Marmarinos says the threat of jail won't deter him from helping those in need.
Even now, if I go out and see a boat in danger, I'll go help. How could I just leave and wait for the Coast Guard? By the time the Coast Guard arrives, people might already have drowned.
Out at sea that June morning, he spotted another small dinghy approaching. It held 19 migrants from Yemen and Sudan, according to Legal Center Lesbos, a local aid agency that provides legal assistance to migrants. The boat landed in a rocky cove. The migrants disembarked and ran up a steep hillside.
You have to be human. End of story. That's what I've come to understand. If you're not human, then nothing else matters. Nothing.
Thousands of fans lined the streets of Birmingham on Wednesday to send off Ozzy Osbourne, known as the godfather of heavy metal and the Prince of Darkness. The Black Sabbath frontman died on July 22nd at the age of 76. Osbourne had said he did not want his funeral to be a mope fest, and a New Orleans-style brass band led the procession through his home city. But the celebration was mixed with sadness from his fans and family. His wife, Sharon Osbourne, had tears in her eyes as she took in a floral tribute that had amassed at a bench dedicated to Osbourne and his Black Sabbath bandmates. Along the route, fans chanted and spoke of the musician's legacy and impact on their lives.
Been a Black Sabbath fan for a long time, watched the Osbournes on the TV. So we've grown up with these being in our homes, so they're like our family, you know?
Yeah. Everyone's here for Ozzy.
For Jamie Martin and Tony Mack, members of a local band, emotions were high. They credit Osbourne as inspiration for their music.
It's been very emotional, being in a band together. It just means the world to us to see the community pull together. I'm very sad to see Ozzy go, but I think he'd be proud of the turnout today.
Osbourne died 17 days after his farewell gig in Birmingham, where a star-studded lineup featuring bands like Metallica and Guns N' Roses paid tribute to Black Sabbath's legacy. The band's hits, Paranoid, War Pigs, and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, made Osbourne a star in the early 1970s, and his antics on stage, most famously biting the head off a bat, extended his fame far beyond metal music. A private funeral was held after the procession. No cause of death was given, but the star had disclosed a Parkinson's disease diagnosis in 2020.